Well, back again with our fantastic mower project. So we got the engine to run, which is job one, and now we're turning to making it actually cut grass. So when I started to disassemble this mower and take a look at it, I realized that one of these belts was actually off, and it turns out that that was for the deck. It was actually the deck drive belt, which the way that every manufacturer is a little bit different with how they do their deck belts, and as you can see, it's kind of intimidating. It's a maze of pulleys and springs and belts and grooves, and but if you just kind of lay here and picture it for a while, it becomes pretty easy to figure out. Plus, there's a map a lot of times, so you can see that they have drawn. The solid belt is the one that's up under the frame here, and the dashed belt is the one that's actually on the deck. So you can see the kind of orientation where that goes. But typically when there's a belt off, somebody got frustrated, and maybe that's why they parked this thing. I could tell you exactly probably what threw the belt off. I put it back on now, but this being a 42-inch deck, there's two blades. And underneath each one of these big pulleys, this one here and the one over there, under these chintzy shroud cover things, so that you don't get your shoelaces or anything caught in there, is the actual blade. So each one of these is driven, the blade is directly driven by this pulley. And it has sealed bearings in there and a shaft that goes through that actually you tighten the blade onto that shaft, which is driven by this pulley. So those need to spin freely. And when you neglect your mower and let it rust and rot and sit in the backyard and get full of rats and mice and stuff, they can seize up. So I can tell you right now that I am actually pulling the entire tractor back and forth, and that pulley will not move. So it's seized. I would guess that the other one is probably the same way. And when those seize up, your belts are spinning, your engine's trying to drive them, and things just loosen up and go all haywire, and that probably kicked the belt off. So these belts probably all should be replaced, but we're not going to go there yet because we may have some bigger issues, because if we can't get these spindles, as they call them, to free up, we may actually have to rebuild this whole deck, and that could get a little expensive. That, depending on how much time and money you wanted to put into this mower, that could be a deal breaker, because each one of these whole assemblies is usually over 70 some bucks. The belts are probably going to be 30 to 40 some bucks each, so you could be talking a significant little chunk of change for this, junkyard rescue, unless you wanted to just ditch the deck and make it a cart puller or some kind of fun ride around the yard tractor. So we're gonna get this taken off and assess the situation, see if we could break them free and get them lubed up again. As far as taking a mower deck off, typically you're always gonna have something in the front that holds it up to keep the front edge of the deck from digging into the grass. So this one here, you see, has this big like yoke, I'll call it. So that doesn't actually have anything that removes. Once we get this loosened, you'll be able to slide the deck forward into this slot and just lift up on this bar. So we'll do that pretty much last. This deck here has a nice little setup where it has spring-loaded, I'll call them U-bolts or U-pins. So you just grab a hold here and pull, wiggle them, and pull them outward. That will disengage these bars. The bars are actually connected to springs and cables, which is what you pull on up top to raise and lower the deck with that handle. So whenever you take a mower deck off, you want to lower the deck down to the ground just so that it sets on the ground, so the weight of the deck is off of it. If for some reason you have your handles in such a way where you can actually push them down further, you don't want that. You just want to have, no force on this deck besides just the ground setting on it. So we're going to yank those pins out. On each side has one, and then sometimes there's another cable or a rod that goes across to keep the mower deck from moving this way, just to stabilize it under the deck. So you'll just have a pin or something that we can take that out on, and then of course you'll be taking the belt off that actually connects the deck to the engine. So this is a pulley that's connected to the engine that's always spinning. So whatever's easiest to take off, I like to take them off at the engine if I can. Usually there's little guides or something that are holding up there, so it just takes a little bit of persuasion to kind of pull them, and sometimes you can have somebody hold tension on the belt while you have it slack. And then a lot of manufacturers actually have a rod that'll be running along the side here with a spring on it. You just take a hold of the rod and loosen it, and that will loosen the whole deck belt off. This one doesn't have that, but we should be able to get this off relatively easily by myself, and just have to remember where you hooked everything up, and once we do this whole discovery project, maybe we can put it back together the same way it came off.